Hello my friends. My name is Bot Mathematician, and this is Holomancer. Today we have prepared a list of the most interesting decks for each class.
In order to do this, we followed the meta and took an analysis of some decks from popular resources. We also found some interesting versions of popular decks, and collected some unpopular but interesting archetypes.
Over the past week, we conducted tests on many decks, and selected the most fun decks that actually have potential. News of the balance changes came as no surprise to us. We had expected that the rogue would be damaged, and told about this in the last video.
In general, the nerf will not change the game considerably. Definitely, the rogue will lost popularity, a new leader of the meta will appear. Perhaps it will be the hunter, but there will be no cardinal changes in the deck building. We will see all archetypes that already known on the competitive play, but several new decks may appear after all.
Therefore, we believe that our decks are relevant after the nerf. So, if you're tired of boring popular meta decks, our list may be useful, at least in the first weeks after the nerf.
Of course, these decks won't take you from rank 20 to legend in one evening, but with the right treatment and experience, you will be able to advance up the ladder. However, you should be careful if you do not have a large collection of cards because the fun with these decks may turn out to be unreasonably expensive.
If you use an interesting deck that is not included in this list, leave the code of the deck in the comments with #HearthstoneFun.
Let's collect as many good decks as possible in one place and make Hearthstone a little more fun for all residents of Azeroth.
Now let's get to the list of the most interesting decks. Rogue was the meta leader, and had the most popular archetype in the game. Fortunately, it is a history now. After damage of Tempo Rogue, Miracle Rogue has a good chances of success.
In general, less than 1% of players use this archetype. This deck has huge number of different variants. Now, we want to offer you a special version known as Bunny Hopper Rogue. According to HS Replay statistics, in the last week only 2,000 players have used this deck. This version has a win rate of 50%. In his stream, Bunny Hopper played this deck at the legend rank, and had a very good win rate.
Miracle Rogue is one of the oldest decks. Your main task is to control the early game, by using minions and spells to efficiently clear the board, and generate board presence, then destroy your opponent in the late game with heavy damage.
Miracle Rogue always plays many cards and performs many actions, so you can often set up a very large Edwin Van Cleef on the board. In the late game, you can perform a combo that adds many copies of Heistbar and Togwaggle into your deck, then draws 3 of them that cost 0 mana. You can see something similar in Tralden's meme video.
In general, this is a very fun deck that deserves your attention.
The most popular warrior archetypes are Bomb and Control, but we want to give you an alternate option, Mecha'Thun Warrior. This deck is one of the best answers to control warriors and rogue decks, yet this deck is not popular among players. We found a very interesting version of this deck with Undatakah for you.
This version costs 10,520 dust, and has a win rate of 51%. In general, the gameplay of this deck is very similar to Control Warrior, but your main goal is to draw as many cards as possible to empty your deck.
Eventually you should put your Mecha'Thun on the board as a Trojan horse. Your enemy will think that you have a hopeless situation since you decided to use the most valuable card in your deck. The main enemy of this strategy is Polymorph. At the end of the battle, you should have only 3 cards in your hand. With these cards, you will be able to use the combo with Undatakah, Inner Rage and Devastate. The main advantage of this deck is Surprise, since this version is used very rarely.
Before we continue, don't miss our video about packs.
We carried out new calculations and found out that buying a classic set is not as profitable as it once was.
Let's talk about the Shaman. If you like this class, you have a diverse selection. All archetypes have almost the same level of popularity, but we want to show you the Dragon Shaman.
This archetype appeared immediately after the release of Rastakhan's Rumble, and was always very unstable. This deck has always had a very low level of popularity.
The objective with Dragon Shaman is to hold back the opponent's development of the board with dragons, while simultaneously putting down threats.
You have many removal tools across all phases of the game in the form of Lightning Storm, Hex and Hagatha's Scheme. These can all stop your opponent from establishing a board. Additionally, Hagatha the Witch rewards you with a random Shaman spell each time you play a minion. This will allow you to always have a full hand of cards.
It's time to talk about Mage. Over the past few weeks, players continue to experiment with decks for this class. Mage is now very diverse in its strategies, but has only 2 effective archetypes, Spell and Dragon.
It seems to us that Spell Mage is the most interesting deck. This deck has been showing strong growth over the past few weeks. This archetype has 6% popularity. Our version of the deck costs 11,620 dust and has a win rate of 52%.
This deck can draw and generate many extra resources, so the playstyle is very similar to Miracle. A number of new cards in the Rise of Shadows set have given this deck a new lease on life.
Mana Cyclone generates many extra spell resources for you. In the late game, Archmage Antonidas will help you to get several extra fireballs.
Druid has gone down in popularity in all levels of play. The token archetype presence at Legend is very small. Unfortunately, other successful decks just aren't around. Nevertheless, for those of you out there who are intrigued to try something new, your only choice is a heal archetype.
This version of the deck costs 12,880 dust and has a win rate of only 49%. The general strategy for Heal Druid is to take advantage of the multiple healing synergy cards introduced with Rise of Shadows to gain huge value over your opponents. With all the healing in the deck, you shouldn't have too much of a problem bringing Lucent Bark back from its dormant state time after time in the late game. Also, you can use minions with copy effects to get more copies of Lucent Bark.
Secret Hunter has grown in popularity and is becoming more noticeable. Mech and Midrange Hunter have also seen an uptick in play. Rexxus has 5 different archetypes right now. It seems to me that Malygos Hunter is the most interesting of them, although it has the lowest level of popularity and a mediocre win rate. We want to show you the version of the deck that I use. It costs 90 to 80 dust and has a win rate of 53%.
The aim of Malygos Hunter is to orchestrate a situation in which you can burst down your opponent by playing a lot of cheap damage spells. Critically, you must use these spells after playing minions with spell damage effects.
This deck contains only 4 minions. One of them is Geppetto Joy Buzz, an important component for combos.
With perfect luck, you can use this card to get Malygos and Verisa or Alexstrasza. The very next turn you can then unleash your barrage of burst damage. As an addition to this, on your next turn you can repeat all of those spells with Zul'jin.
Now let's talk about the most popular deck for the Priest. And no, this is not Resurrect Priest. The situation has changed in the last 2 weeks, and now the new leader is Miracle Priest with Chef Nomi. Its statistics at Legend continue to rise despite its relatively low overall efficiency.
We have prepared the most optimal version with the highest win rate for you, but can 49% be considered a good result? Despite this, the main advantage of this deck is cost. This is the cheapest deck on our list.
If you are lucky enough to get Nomi in your packs, you should try this deck.
Miracle Priest is a new archetype introduced with the Rise of Shadows expansion that relies on drawing a lot of cards with the help of Northshire Cleric and Gadgetzan Auctioneer in order to finish the game with Nomi. The deck features ways to generate more copies of Chef Nomi, such as Seance. The game plan of the deck is to draw as many cards as possible while answering the opponent's threats.
We believe that this deck is one of the most fun on our list.
Warlock seems to have a crisis of innovation. Zoo Warlock is the only effective archetype, and has been gradually losing influence in the meta, since the lack of new ideas makes the game quite boring.
Therefore, we want to advise you to play Handlock.
There is not one Handlock list, and for now players are trying a variety of different approaches. Despite this, we found a version that not only has high efficiency, but also uses Lord Jaraxxus.
This card wasn't viable for a very long time. However, Handlock is gaining traction, and the Lord is seeing gameplay again.
The deck's basic game plan revolves around life tap. You want to abuse a big hand size, making your minions cheaper or more powerful.
So, if your Lord Jaraxxus hasn't been utilized in a long time, you should try this deck.
And finally, let's talk about Paladin.
Paladin is still very diverse in its strategies, and has 7 different archetypes. Unfortunately, not many of them have good results competitively. This leaves Paladin at the bottom of the bin, waiting for balance changes, or a new expansion.
Mech Paladin is the best the class has to offer. This archetype has 1.7% popularity. This version of deck costs 11,360 dust, and has a win rate of 56%. The deck aims to magnetize mech minions during the mid-game before generating a huge tempo swing with Khadgar's endless army to finish the game.
We do not think that this deck is fun, but this is the only thing that we can offer you at the moment, as other archetypes are more like memes, and have a very low efficiency.
Some time ago we asked about your favorite playstyle. The results did not surprise us. Most of the players love the control playstyle and only 10% admit that they love aggro.
Thank you very much for actively participating in our polls.
Finally, we want to ask you a new question. Has Hearthstone become more fun after the rotation and release of Rise of Shadows?
I was very afraid that after the release we would get a very monotonous game, but my fears were not confirmed. For me, the game has become very diverse and interesting. What do you think?
We created a YouTube poll. Find the button on the screen. Please vote and share your opinion in the comments.
Alright, that's all for today. Thank you for being with us.
And special thanks to Chris for text editing.
We will meet in new videos.
Good luck.